Nikki Wilbert. I'm the Director of Gifted Services for the district. I recognize some of you from the various things that have been going on lately. I'm going to let our panel introduce themselves, and we've got one who was directing you to the library outside. Deborah, she's going to come in. And then this is a pretty loose format, and I've got questions that I will share out, and whoever on the panel wants to respond can respond. You can all respond. Whoever has something they want to share to enlighten with, they'll share, and we'll just kind of, I'll keep an eye on time in hopes that we can get through all of the questions. But tonight is really about the gifted middle schooler in general. Certainly you can glean information about Quest and about Journey, which are our specific middle school programs for gifted kids. But we've kind of already had those things at those events. So tonight is really more about characteristics of middle school students who are gifted, maybe what some of those challenges are, strengths, all of that good stuff. And I am sure people will be trickling in, and that is all good. We'll just roll with that. All right, so without further ado, we'll get started. And I'm at that fun age where I can't read with my glasses on. So, all right, our first question: how would you describe a typical gifted middle school student? What strengths and traits do you see most often, and what challenges sometimes come with those strengths?
Sure. Yeah. So by the way, I'm Mr. Doss. So this is or Ronan Doss. It's my full legal name, not just my teacher name. I decided in January that I wanted to be a teacher. So I've had about 3 months of just amazing experience getting thrust into all of this. And I've just met the most amazing students. When we talk about the kinds of students that enroll in Journey, I've seen so much creativity and so much intelligence. Really kind of mind-blowing, some of the stuff that you hear them talk about and some ideas that they bring to the discussions and the work ethic. And yeah, I think just so many amazing and again, just what you would expect from a kind of collection of gifted kids, right? I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in on that.
But I would like to speak to, I'm Dr. Karen Hedson. I also teach with this team about asynchronous. So you have somebody who is so brilliant, so bright, yet so either not socially a little bit behind or awkward or whatever. You just have this sort of mishmash of and brains that have so many ideas. I have so many kids say to me, "I'm not sleeping," and because I have all these ideas and I need to get them all out. So it's fascinating to be see what they're thinking, and then to help them bring it into what works best for them.
And they're all in the same room at the same time.
Yes.
That's even more exciting. It really is exciting to teach them because you can just see their minds going, oh, what this. And it's really fun. And I tell them that the only advantage I have over them is that I know more things than they do. They're much smarter than I am, but I know more things. I would just comment that a lot of intensity often comes with the gifted kids, because they feel so deeply about certain things, and also their interests can be very broad, which is wonderful, but also part of that intensity. Well, now I'm focused on this, then I'm focused on this. Now I'm interested in this, which is fabulous. Fabulous trait. It's just a matter of helping them focus on the correct thing at the proper time. The proper thing at the proper time. Not
Others will pop in with you too. This is you guys, I think.
Oh, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Robin Reese and Mrs. Reese, and I teach 8th grade ELA and in the Journey program at Mountain Trail.
And I'm Deborah Bernard. I do 7th grade ELA Journey. And I'm Miss Serwin, and I teach 7th and 8th grader social studies. And I used to teach ELA, so it's kind of fun to see the bridge of that. And to answer the question, I don't think there is a typical gifted kid. They are so very different. We have some kids who are like the popular kids, right? Like that's something very motivating to them. They try out for student council. They want to run the school. They want to run NJHS, National Junior Honor Society. They're all involved in all of those activities. And then you have kids who are shyer, and that's not their jam, but they love something else. And they are interested in so many different things. And you see that come through in their who they are. And we really get to know, we're all from Journey, by the way, at Mountain Trail Middle School. So this is my first year.
First year in Journey, but have taught in the district and honors and gifted forever. Seems like forever.
Older than dirt, actually.
Not you, me. All right, I'll sit in the middle.
And you taught elementary at
I
Fireside.
taught for 20 years in California middle school, seventh grade English language arts and history. And I retired. And then I came here and my granddaughter's class at Fireside was not going to have a teacher. You know that. And I said, well, that doesn't seem right. So I said, if you'll have me, I'll take the job. So I did. I taught at Fireside for 2 years in the gifted department. There I had the content replacement class. And then I retired again. And then,
We're desperate.
well, I know,
Big and
I know, I kept driving by the school for several years on my way to Fireside, and I kept saying to myself, was manifesting, that's what I said, if I could only have a job at Mountain Trail, 87th grade middle school, I would love it. And then it popped up, and it's like, well, hello, I'll do that.
2 days before school starts.
2 days, before school started. But anyway, so it's been wonderful, but.
Not as big of a coincidence though, right? Because you'd amassed kind of a reputation. They saw you about person.
I do have a
Yeah.
reputation, I do. It's mostly good.
Definitely. And our Quest team was going to be here as well, and as life happens, different things came up with health and family and whatnot. So we're grateful to have most all of our Journey team, our Quest friends, just have things come up, and so that is all good. It works. Any myths or misconceptions about gifted students you'd like to do?
I think you kicked us off with a really good one with there is no typical gifted kid. What a great way to sum it all up. It's like every one of them is so different. It's like a normal class just in that regard, socially. And again, with what you were saying about the asynchronous development too, everybody is kind of at a different level. So it's all of these different personalities sort of meshing together in such an interesting way. But in terms of myth busting, what do we got?
Ooh,
Yeah.
I run into this often. The kid is so gifted. Why can't they solve these problems themselves? They're a kid. They're learning. They're growing. They're a human being. Just because they have an incredible in-depth understanding, and I mean rapid fire understanding relating to things, they still need parenting. They still need our guidance. I always refer to myself as kind of the bumper, in the bowling alley sometimes, because I had kids who are so passionate about social justice or things like that. But they're still human beings like everybody else, and they're kids. In the end, they just are. Just because they're.
And I find a lot of them, some of them, many of them, have a perfectionism stroke, which I can identify with, 1000%, because I still have one and I work against it, but it works against me all the time. And so that's an interesting thing to work with kids.
Just turn it in. It's fine.
Yeah.
Turn it in. No,
But it's not perfect. No, I gotta do it home.
Failure. And a lot of times that prevents some of them from even starting. We show the chapter.
Good point.
And we all work together and meet together every week to talk about our students, to envelop them and try to help them work through these issues, because we know that they're going to have such aptitude, and we have these 2 years to get them through these years and then ready for freshman year or wherever they choose to go. So we really work with them and work with the parents to try to help them with them, because some kids flying colors all the way through both years, but then you get it later on. Nobody ever gets through this unscathed in some way, as parents.
There's that transition from 6th grade where K through 6, everybody's all together, same building kind of thing, or class, or whatever. And then now you're in 7th grade, you're going all over this campus, you've got all these different classes and all these different teachers. And to build self-confidence in kids to be able to tackle all that and to balance all of it. That's 7th graders. I mean, seventh grade, there's all kinds of, well, we didn't do that last year, in sixth grade. No, there's a good reason, because you have a progression. You're learning more skills and you're strengthening the skills that you.
I think seventh graders are, I'm sorry, I think seventh graders are fun. They're very funny human beings. And so it's a kick for me to spend time with them. That's why I love seventh grade. I can remember being a seventh grader vividly. And so when they're being seventh graders, I chuckle to myself because it's so who I was many years ago. That has not changed. Seventh graders are still, I'm going to use the word quirky. I don't like that word, but we are all a little bit quirky in seventh grade, I think. And we all have our own nuances and challenges, and it's what makes every one of us unique. And it's not a bad thing, a good thing. It's just a thing and a thing and a thing and a thing. It's just what we all are and have.
The other thing too is to go from these individual schools where you may be pretty much the smartest kid. And it's pretty easy because you just memorize stuff or whatever. And now there's a whole bunch of you. And sometimes it's competition. They get, they're shocked that there's a lot of kids who, and the flip side of that is they find their tribe, they find kids who have the same interests, the same things, and it's just amazing because that's what we really want. Kids are going up to high school. We want them to already know how to get that tribe, the kids that are supportive of each other to where they're going, because high school is even bigger. Understand each other. Yeah.
And I love how in our program, we're all in one area of the school. So we're all on the second floor of the C building. So that's the journey program. And then seventh graders and eighth graders, like the eighth graders, like this, the seventh graders in the hallway. It's so horrible. And I love how they know each other. Sometimes they have math classes together or like their electives.
It's a real camaraderie.
Yeah.
Amongst all of the journey students. They don't feel judged, they feel understood, feels community, and
They say things to me, which I think is so funny. Is Mrs. Irwin like your best friend? Julie is like, she's a friend, but we teach together. I don't know if she's my best friend. It's like, we're always seeing each other, we always start hanging out or in the hallway. We're always together because we're talking and building curriculum and making sure that we're all on the same page about a child. So it does seem like we're all best buddies all the time. I do love you, Julie, but love you too.
All right, you've started to get into some of this. What are some of the biggest adjustments gifted students face when moving into middle school, both academically and socially?
I think for me, it was startling. So I did not think about this when the kids came in, that they're all coming from different elementary schools, where they might have a teacher that gave a lot of homework. They might have a teacher that didn't give homework at all. They might have had a very light load or a heavy load. And so when they come to my room and they're appalled that I give homework, although honestly, it was from Monday through Friday, they could do it, a total of maybe 20 minutes. But they were like, we have other teachers, I understand, but I called it homework for a reason. So there's a big adjustment depending upon what they're coming from. If they're coming from a light load to, we don't give a lot of homework. And I mean that sincerely, but it may be more than what they were used to. And so there are things that they have to transition into. And they do. I mean, that same student is now happy to do the homework. I think he was maybe concerned that he was going to be in over his head, and none of the kids are over their head at all. And we are there because we really love teaching seventh graders, eighth graders. They're fun, and they're also the generation that's going to save us all.
no pressure there.
I know. Well, I tell them every day, so they better figure it out.
And I'm gonna add on to that a little bit. I think something that they have to figure out for themselves is who is their tribe? Like, what are you going to do? We have a lot of extracurricular things after school, more than any place I've ever been to. Like every day, it's not just sports. There's like the D&D club, there's a chess club, there's your drama, There's all these different activities, creative writing club. So there's all these different activities that kids can do. And then in them, they find other people then, like some journey kids and some non-journey kids. And they just need to find their niche. Like, where do I fit? Where do I belong? Which is kind of what everybody's trying to figure out right in the world is who are your people and where do you feel comfortable? And so that's what I think is an important thing for parents to be involved with is knowing what those extracurriculars are and then talking with your child about what they think they might want to do. And so I think that's awesome. Lots of kids do sports. That's a great opportunity. But you know, there's an activity for everybody. So that's important.
I completely agree. Were you done? I
Yeah,
didn't
I'm
want
done.
to
I'm
jump
done.
in. Yeah, just because she's speaking my heart because obviously very topical. The Drama Club is starting tomorrow. I'm very excited. And I think that is such a good shortcut, right, to finding those like-minded people. And it's fun because I do teach 2 periods of drama on top of all the journey stuff. And I think I get to see some of my journey students interacting with other, you know, the non-journey students and they just mesh so well together. You know what I mean? Like it's if we want to talk about busting myths, it's one thing is like I kind of it's almost easy to put them in their own camp, but it's like they're all just kids at the end of the day, right? There's no difference. And I think those electives and those after school clubs are such a great way to kind of open up those doors and still preserve the social skills that are being built. Because it's not like, you know, I feel like that's what I was getting at with the myth thing, right? Is there's maybe a subconscious thing of like, well, maybe this is coming at the expense of the kids' social skills, right? You know what I mean? Like, but it's not like that at all. It's really fostering so much communication, both within and without the journey program. It's awesome.
Which adjustment would you say tends to take the longest for kids as they come to middle school?
Executive functioning with you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Balancing all of this and organizing it.
Yeah. And we use agendas for our students, and so I think making sure that they write things down. We as adults, I just tell them as adults, we live off of our calendars. We set reminders for ourselves all the time so that we don't forget things. It's the same thing with you. You're working so hard, you want a certain grade. It's not all about the grades, definitely not all about the grades, about the growth, but you don't want to take 2 steps forward and 1 back because you forgot an assignment or you forgot to turn something in or whatever it is. So we're trying to help you to develop those skills because sometimes those are as important as the academic part of it. When they get to high school, it's the big, you know, that we're just the stepping stones. High school and the grades for high school, that's the most important part as when they get older, and we just want to help them to get there.
So as an 8th grade teacher, and I have taught 7th grade, but it's been since the first year of my career, so 8th grade. I try to wean them off the dependence on other people rushing in and saying, well, wait, you've got this is due, you've got to do this, you've got to do this. And that approach is very helpful. You know, if they stumble a few times, then I give them an opportunity to make it up. You know, but that experience of, oh, I better stay on top of stuff. I better be aware, or I could really get myself in trouble, especially as they move into high school. And also, being able, I mean, there's no homework in my class unless they don't use their time effectively in class. So that helps with some of that executive function. Okay, wait a minute. If I use my time, I'm going to be ahead of the game in class. I'm going to be ahead of the game. And I'm also, right now, the teacher's right there. So if I'm struggling with something, I can ask for help. This works out much better. And it helps reinforce that idea of efficiency and being aware and taking responsibility.
I mean, you're talking about kids going from external motivation, did you get this done, to internal motivation with, if I get it done now, then that's really where we want these kids to go, because again, in high school, it's much more independent. Like you just have to have these.
Yeah, that executive function is really tricky, moving from elementary where you're hands are being held a lot of times. Into middle school where we ask that they maintain these things on their own. And for the first couple weeks of school, I was finding papers on my floor, papers that I passed out, lovingly put in through the Xerox machine and on the floor. And I'm like, what is this? These are important papers. And so the kids, my kids now in my class, all have to maintain all of the papers that I pass out in a binder so that at the end of the quarter, I can go through a binder check and say, yeah, you kept all those papers. That's awesome. And it's just to help them remember, I have to keep track of stuff. No one else is going to do that for me. I do have to remind the moms and dads, please don't help them by cleaning out their binder because that could be a problem when we go to do the binder check. So, but it is up to the kids to maintain these things and they haven't had to do it pretty much until now. So that's a big challenge for a lot of them.
That's the perfect transition of it. What can parents do at home to support their gifted child's smooth transition and success in middle school? What routines or habits make the biggest difference? And what should parents avoid doing that might hinder their
Doing the work for them. Yeah, it's hard.
That's why I think we're doing as much of the science fair projects during school hours, everything. Because, here's the science fair and you can tell that some parents just resist. So now we're trying to make it more about creativity with a purpose related to science.
But as you think, as a parent, I have 3 children, are now adults. It isn't the time to just like let them fly. Like I think sometimes parents are like, the kids will say, I can do it all by myself. But I think it's all right for you as a parent. You can look at their agenda. You can look at Infinite Campus. I always did it on Fridays because then that was their ticket out the door, right? Here's your grades, but everything looks good, or make sure. And if there's a missing assignment and you think you turned it in, just shoot an email to help your child open up the email. Shoot the email to the teacher, say, hey, can you take a look at this again? I thought I turned this in. So just teaching them all those skills like that, I think it's so perfect. You don't need to do it yourself. It's awesome. You're letting somebody else take over on that. And the child then is empowered. Awesome. Like to see them grow up and be able to transition from the 11-year-old to the 12 and 13-year-old. Pretty darn amazing. And then once they go to high school, 14, it's amazing to see how much growth there is between 7th and 8th grade and going into high school. They're ready.
I
They're
would
ready
like
for
to
it.
add that another good thing, I'm a mother of a highly gifted child. He graduated from Horizon in 2014. So I'm sorry, 2019. My older one graduated. But my highly gifted one, I think, so in 8th grade, I try to help them not feel like stumbling is the worst thing in the world. Like that, oh my gosh, I got a B. What am I going to do? Or on a particular assignment. And I know some of these kids have some incredible pressure placed on them. And I think I would say helping them normalize their normal trajectory of up and down, up and down. It helps them if they don't feel so afraid of not getting that top of the grade, top grade on every assignment. It's too much pressure and sometimes it can make them stumble where otherwise they might be done good.
Yeah, I saw kids come into the 4th grade as gifted kids and they had never had less than an A because things were pretty easy up until then. And then they came into a gifted class and things weren't always as easy. And so there were lots of tears. And if they didn't get an A, it was like the world was going to end. So it is a lot about learning that the difference between getting that A and how much did you learn? How do you feel like you're learning? And for them, there's a big distinction. And sometimes it's pretty hard to process that. No, I want the A versus, no, I really learned a lot. They get to a place where they can say that out loud, but it's pretty hard because they have always gotten really good grades. Life has been really easy for them academically. So that's a challenge. And the pressure of grades is a real thing for these kids.
Being gifted does not mean being perfect.
And failure is not the enemy, because that's an opportunity to learn. Sometimes when it doesn't cost you the big bucks like it does in high school or college. an opportunity. I didn't do well on this. It was hard. It was really, really hard for me.
What could you have done differently,
Right.
you know, working on the steps?
I think especially in math, because they, once they're in seventh grade, they have so many different math classes. So they could have regular seventh grade class, pre-algebra, algebra, geometry. I think we have a seventh grader in geometry, one maybe pre-calc. So they're all over the place. And so it might be really challenging this time, whatever you're in. So I think just helping them navigate their feelings about how they're doing is hard, because as a mom, you want to, dad, you want them to have an easy, smooth sailing and make it all easy, but it might not be. It might be a little bit hard, and that's okay, because then they learn that lesson.
So after all that bit about let us take care of it, whatever, really, it's the communication with you all, because you know your child better than anybody. And that's for me especially, I mean, if you can give me insight as to what's going on, just an email, a quick email to any of us to keep us connected with each other. That's invaluable. We're on the same team. And the child feels supported by, you know, the team too.
All right. How do you see gifted middle schoolers developing independence and responsibility as they move from elementary to middle school? And if you can share an example of how students manage their workload.
I don't think we have very much homework. I think, like Mrs. Bernard was saying, I would bet you even including math, it's definitely less than an hour a day. So I think some people might be surprised by that. We try to give them time in class to do work. I think when it ends up being a little bit more homework is projects, because we have a lot of projects. And so right now we're doing a skit with our 8th graders about American Revolution, and they just started it, and they're going to be making a film about it. So then all of a sudden you might have kids who are like, okay, instead of just doing it here, how about if we get together and we spend, you know, an hour or something on it, working it. So they decide if they want to do it during class, if they need more of a bulk of time. Sometimes they want to do that instead. So it's different for every single child, how they want to do it, when they want to do it. But I don't think there's that much homework. I think the big key thing is looking on their Google Classroom to try to see what that is and developing those habits, whatever habit
They
works for
still
the
have
child.
to study for tests. No matter
Yeah.
what. That takes time. And truthfully, the Latin stems, studying a little bit every day really pays off for the test. So those things are still in place too, along with assignments. I think it's that there are several subjects going on at one time, and we've been pretty good. We're committed to not trying to have two big projects in two different classes at the same time. But then that takes pacing.
Yeah, I thought the skit idea that you brought up was really a perfect example, right, too, because what we were having them do is kind of trying to create a little bit of independence. They all, rather than you know, how it normally works in a big group filming project, somebody takes home all the footage and edits it all themselves. And you know, the work distribution is not very equitable. So what we've decided to do, and again, just to teach another life skill of video editing, which is so important these days, right? We had them all make their own cut. So everybody is going to learn editing, and we had to teach every single person. It wasn't just the tech whiz in every group assembling every project, because I feel like we're all such a collaborative program by nature. Yeah. And we do like building a lot of teams, but in those little crevices, we're talking about and we're discussing ways where we can foster that independence and see that kind of come into where we can really call every student's work their own.
Your experience, how do gifted students balance the increased academic challenge with the social and emotional changes? Yes, we covered that, but what supports are most effective? And do you see differences between 7th and 8th?
Definitely, right, guys?
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh,
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, 8th grade, it's astonishing the growth, the self-confidence. that, you know, that may have been worthy of almost a meltdown in seventh grade when something got lost or whatever and had to be recreated or whatever, in eighth grade thinking, no, I could do that quick, I could do that, I could grab you and we'll do it. You know, that kind of thing happens. What I see between seventh and eighth grade.
Well, and I think the lessening of the hand holding is very helpful for them. They have the self-confidence, they've developed the self-confidence of accomplishing something difficult on their own. And really, that's how a person develops. I think the strongest self-confidence is to accomplish something hard, something difficult, and to discover that they have the skills within themselves to do that without having to, you know, totally depend on someone.
So yeah, because as an adult, we have all kinds of experiences. We can think back, oh, when this happened, this is what I did before, or whatever. These kids are so young, they don't have a lot of those. So we need those kinds of experiences to say, sure, that didn't work out, or what did you do last time? What would have worked better? Trying to build on those ways to fall back and figure out in a healthy way what works and who can you get a hold of that's can help you with that and those kinds of things.
So teacher role as a coach is how I do. That's good.
Guidance.
You have the abilities, you have the skills to accomplish this. What are some ways we can approach it? What are some ways that we can be successful?
And I think self-awareness is part of the whole thing. It's like for them to understand who they are and what are their deficits in terms of how well do they work with a group. If it's not so cool, then how do we build that up so that they can work well in a group? If they're working in a group, but they're the boss, always have to be the boss. And I know some of your children are. We try to set up situations where they can't be the boss, right? That you are going to have to be a follower of the situation because every situation they're in life is not going to offer them the opportunity to be the boss. They're going to have to be the follower sometimes. Some of us are not very good at following, so we have to learn how to do that. So I've been doing some things with self-awareness in the classroom so that they can just think about who they are in the world and who do they turn to for support. When something goes wrong, who is the person that you turn to? And who are those people that are available to you? And so that they can think about, well, my parents for sure. Absolutely. Anybody else? Yeah, my pastor. Great. Anybody else? My teacher. Oh, great. Anybody else? And so they're beginning to see that they have places to turn for help when they need it. So I think that's really important too.
You're the queen of the transition.
Oh,
What happens when a gifted student begins to struggle academically, socially, or emotionally? And how do teachers step in to support them?
Someone grab that one. I think we all work together and we meet every Thursday and we talk about if a student is having trouble and then we meet with them or we meet with their parents. We try to do whatever we think that is at that moment, the right thing to do to try to help them move, you know, and grow in that area and to figure out like, what is it, like kind of what Deborah was saying, what is it that isn't working out and how can I then fix this? What can fix this? What do you need to do? Is it the test taking? Is that sometimes something new in middle school? The parts like for science and social studies, I don't know that they have tests in elementary school. And sometimes that can be a little bit challenging. And so maybe that's it. They didn't ever have to study before because, right?
sometimes they don't know how to study. They don't know what that means. You write study for the test and they're like, I would, but I don't really know.
Right, or you have to have
It's hard.
a paragraph with an answer instead of multiple choice. I mean, this is like more expressive, more.
There are lots of transitions going from elementary to middle school. Sure. And that's one of them. It's like, what is test taking when you're in seventh grade?
It's important that we recognize, which we do, but that just because they're gifted doesn't mean they automatically know everything. You know, we need to be able to look through their perspective and say, okay, I'm going to give them test studying strategies that work for them, put those in place for them. Don't expect them to just because they are so highly gifted know everything. There's someone said they're still kids, you know, so it's important we focus on them, making sure they have tools.
We have a lot of math and science kids. They're just math inside of math. And that's fine. And then it's like, why do I want to read the story about some guy that, I mean, what difference does that make? And so then you have to sell that as to why that person's life or that literature makes it a difference and try to get it so that it relates to them somehow. That's a big sales job. It just is. And when somebody comes up to me in the hallway and drops their clarinet and their backpack and says, Jekyll and Hyde are the same guy. I mean, just like, yeah, see, remember this is back to science and you like science, I mean, it was like the sales thing, but trying to always connect. And that's the exciting part. I mean, look, there's all those coming up and that's what we thrive on, is finding those ways to have those lights.
Well, and I'll tell my students, can you be successful in life without ever reading an Edgar Allan Poe story? Well, yes, of course. But those more challenging literature is what we use, the tools we use to help you build your neural network, because it's through those sometimes vagaries and the abstract that you find in and throughout literature that helps you actually reflect and understand better relationships between people, between dynamics, that you find in the real world. That can often help with their socialization. Like, oh, okay, I need to look for nuances. I need to look for subtle things. I need to see what their expression is or what their body language is. It's part of character analysis. And it does relate. And I tell them, I said, for writing, I said, you can be the most brilliant chemist in the world, but if you cannot convey your knowledge and your research in a logical, effective way, you're not going to move ahead in that career very well. You have to be able to communicate and understand the basics of organization and how the strongest points to make and how to make them. So start here.
Social and emotional supports.
So many things, because you're building on what are their interests, what are they good at, what are they comfortable with, and then stretching it just a little bit more. We have an unusual thing, because I've been to different middle schools, but we have one lunchtime. And so 7th and 8th graders are all out there at the same time, each other. So you have twice as many kids, and not just in your grade level, but it's such a well-organized, large space. I mean, there's hang out in the cafeteria or the gym or the quad, or they open up the basketball courts or whatever. But we watch socialization, social things very closely. We have really good counselors that have helped us a lot with things that we didn't know what was going on, or could help us connect more with the parents and the child.
And our parents are really good at reaching out to us or to the counselors to try to help when a child needs some assistance. So they're awesome.
I think
So we're
too,
lucky.
yeah, sorry. I think too, it's about building relationship. And I think that's what we all do every single day with every single one of our kids. We're building that relationship, that sense of caring, that knows, so that they'll know that they're always supported. And that, yes, when you struggle, I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to be your friendly teacher. That's not going to ever change, right? So even if I get irritated with you because of behavior one day, every day is a new beginning. And so we all start again fresh, and it's all good. But it's really about building those relationships with the kids. And that happens from starting on day one. And it just gets better and better and better until the end of the year, no one wants to go home, which is great.
We have had kids who say, well, yeah, if you're in the middle of teaching them a book or whatever, and it's like, oh, it's Friday. Oh my God. They're thinking about it all week, and Monday they come back and you spring it on them as to what happened after all that, that kind of a thing. I just have to say that I have the good fortune to be secondary support. So I'm at middle school in the morning, and then I end up at the high school in the afternoons, or some other schools at another middle school. And when kids come up to you in high school and say, you guys were right. I mean, or like Mrs. Weiss isn't with us tonight, she's not feeling well. You know, these things we had, you know, for science. It means a lot. And I take that back because sometimes kids will complain and say this is hard, or why do I want to learn this, or whatever, but it pays off. Pays off.
And a good amount of our students go to Crest at PV in their programs, and it's pretty competitive. And some students go to Pinnacle, and some students go to Shadow Mountain, to Shadow Daps, and some go to North Canyon. So they go to different high schools depending upon what their love is. And I love that they can choose, and they're independent enough to choose what their love is and not their friendships always. Isn't that what we always talk about, like when they're going to college? Choose what you want to do and don't just go where your friend goes. So I love that they can stand in their own independence.
Great. Can we explain the differences between West Journey and middle school honors?
Okay, I'll take that. So the majority of my career, I taught 8th grade honors English at Desert Shadows. So I'm very heavily involved in the honors program because they did not have a separate gifted program. Many of my students were gifted. But the level, so teaching gifted students is more about depth, we don't focus as much on breadth. And in honors, you don't have the flexibility to enrich your program as much as we have in the gifted program. So we have access to literature that the honors classes don't have access to. We have the ability to choose and select district approved literature, but that is on a deeper level, more advanced for them. It challenges them more than a lot of the literature that is available for the honors classes. We also, we have the ability to do things, there's time for us to do things, like I have my students debate a lot, do team debates, and to help them reinforce developing an argument. You know, it's the same process as developing everything you need for an argument essay, just in the format of a debate. You know, eventually in honors classes, you just don't feel like there's time as a teacher to do that. It's much more regimented and limited in their materials, and they are, it's just, you can't go the depth that we have the freedom to go with our gifted students, and that we know is really good for those gifted students. Where in an honors level class, even if it's honors, a lot of them are thinking beyond that, and they will become bored in an honors level class.
Is one difference, in the honors class, I may be wrong, it's mostly for kids who are really strong academic students. They get all their homework in on time, they work really hard on that.
High-performing.
Right, high performing, which that's not necessarily the criteria for a gifted student. Where that's really delineated by their scores on gifted tests, but also there may not be, I mean, I've had students who are highly gifted that are really not very good academic students. Like, it's hard for them to turn things in on time. So there is that difference between the two.
I won't add one thing, something you said in my, so traditionally in honors, a parent can demand that their child be in an honors class. They can demand it pretty much. And usually it will bend. They may get switched out of it if they can't meet the deadlines and stuff. But your gifted cohort, you have to meet the very rigid standards that are in place for your child to be accepted into this cohort of gifted students. The honors, it's kind of all over the place. Yes, there are some very high achieving students that are very bright, but that's mixed in. There's a real mix or blend, I would say, in an honors class compared to a gifted class.
And I think the thing that you have to know as the teacher is every child comes in with whatever set of skills that they already have, and you're working with that. We know they all have, I always just say it's like Michael Jordan. So Michael Jordan, we know he became the king of basketball, but he did get cut from his team, I think 9th grade. So if he didn't learn those skills and go back in there, he'd never become the Michael Jordan. So we have some kids who are going to be like that. We know they have the aptitude, the intelligence, but they don't always have the skills. So we're helping that child along with the child who does have all of it. You know, you're working with all of those kiddos to try to help them to feel comfortable in the rigor that you're trying to push them. You know, you're trying to give them these gentle pushes to be able to be as strong of a student as they can be. So I just think that the difference for me is for us to understand as the teacher that they don't all come in at the same place. So even though they're gifted.
If each of you would respond to this is our last question. What's your biggest piece of advice for parents of gifted schools?
So far mine would just be normalize the struggle, you know what I mean? Just emphasize that that it's not always going to be perfect, right? We talked a lot about that. Of just really kind of the emphasis on progress, letting them find their own way, giving them that independence. I think a lot of 7th graders, one difference I observed is 7th graders seem to really want a lot of guidance and 8th graders want that autonomy. There's so much of a difference in that regard in terms of the motivation that I've observed. So I think just adapting to what your kid needs and also giving them the space to figure it out, you know?
I'm gonna follow that because I think for me, it's really about recognizing the individual student. What do they need from me on any given day? I mean, I think it's, on some days, it's very different than the day before, and the next day it might be different again. So you have to always be really ready to respond to whatever they need in the moment. And I think that's, for me, that's the joy of teaching. It's like no day is the same because they all come with their own baggage, and I brought my baggage, and together we're going to build something. We're not sure what it is, but I think it's about meeting the kids where they are, whoever they are in any given day, because it can be different. So I just loving them.
I have parents tell me, my kid has been asking me questions forever. They just, like, I'm supposed to know all the answers and, all this kind of stuff. And to just embrace that and have as many outlets as you can intellectually, because the relief and release in their brains of knowing more, understanding more, is such a liberating kind of thing. I love to watch this in these kids, because many times you need to sit down, be quiet and wait, or whatever, those kinds of things. And here we have just leaving. When they said, "Oh, I get it now," it's like, oh. And then the best part is then you get it, and then she gets it because you just said that. I mean, that's what's happening with these kids. So even though it's a lot of questions to answer, it's wonderful to embrace it.
So I remember, I just mentioned, my older son was not gifted, highly achieving, was in an honors classes, but not gifted. My younger son, and silly me, I assumed because same genetics and stuff, I thought, well, they're going to be kind of similar to each other. Holy crap, was the gifted one. And there were times, so I was learning it, just because I'm a teacher doesn't mean I automatically knew what it was like to parent a gifted kid. And I remember sometimes I would worry because he was so intense that it did interfere with his personal relationship somewhat. He was just too intense. So I kind of had to worry about that a little bit, but worked it out. He grew out of it and normalized mostly. He's 24 now. And he would jump from interest to interest to interest. And I thought, "Oh, gosh, how do I help my kid get focused and stable?" And you don't, because when they're at this age, let them explore as many interests as they have. And again, eventually, it does calm down as they age and mature. And but I just remember I had some real concerns because it was like having an alien creature sometimes compared to my older son. It is. And to just sit back and appreciate their distinctive traits and realize that this is part of their development and try not to worry too much about, they feel things more deeply oftentimes, and that can help, that can send them when they realize there's injustice in a certain way, or certain people are hurt, or things don't add up logically in the world. It can send them into a real reflective, kind of a depressed spiral sometimes, because they just do, they feel things more deeply. They're intense. Mine was intense, still intense, but focused, so that's good.
But I mean, I will just tell you all, this is my 51st year of teaching in this district, right out of this. And I can sit and talk with you and tell you stories on and on about all these wonderful success stories that I sat with parents at different grades. Like I mean, it's just those kinds of things. And I'll tell you what they do. They come up with, they invent stuff. I mean, it's just astounding. It's astounding what these kids come up with and do. They're here for a reason. They are so important. I never lose sight of that, of where is that treasure in them need. And so I have the long range view for you, because my oldest students now are what, 57. And it's exciting. It is. And I'm so glad you're here to help figure out that journey.
And my advice kind of with your segue is, do try to find what their passion is. Like don't give up on it. Like if this doesn't work, well, that's just one thing that didn't work. Let's try one of these other things. Because I think once they get to high school, that's what helps them to find out who they are and who they want to become, is those extracurricular things, or just the things that they're passionate about. And I feel like that's something that was really strong. I loved a lot of different things for a long time before I played softball in college. So that was my thing, but I was a singer before that. I did plays. I tried lots of different avenues before I found the thing.
What is the thing?
Softball.
Oh.
What's the thing? Now it's
I
pickleball.
was teaching.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah. So that would be my advice. The other thing is always celebrate all their successes. I think our mind wants one thing that didn't go right. And I just think of every single success and celebrate that, because it helps your child to think of it that way. All of these things that worked out right.
Or all the things that went right because something didn't go right, and then how that was resolved. Incredibly valuable.
So I celebrate when they stumble too, and go, look at everything you're learning. Okay, let's review what happened. And what can we do? Well, where are the shortcomings that we can shore up, and make the next thing a success, or something similar a success. So I celebrate when they stumble too. You're human, guess what? And look at everything you're learning.
And hopefully you'll realize, I know you're not seeing the teachers from Quest, but we love this age group of kids.
They do too.
Yeah, and they're a great group of kids. I honestly, both Mrs. Reese and myself both came from Desert Shadows of being there for a long time, and we're now over here in the Journey program with our old principal, Mr. Clancy, and we love it. It's such a great program. It's great for the kids. They love it.
And Quest the same. I
Yeah.
mean, They're wonderful teachers. They're, and some of you went to the West night, and saw that. Their passion is there too.
I wish a program like this had existed for my younger son.
I wish it existed for me. I was so bored in school.
It's
I
my
got in
turn.
trouble all the time.
Well, she still gets some training. She's. I wish a program like this had existed for my son. It didn't at the time. And I'm so grateful these programs exist now, so to benefit your gifted children. They are, from an inside perspective, they're wonderful.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing all of your knowledge with this group, and thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you for joining us. If you have follow-up questions, you are welcome to reach out to the gifted department office. And we are happy to help in whatever way we can. But that is almost perfect timing, 4 minutes to spare. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And here.